In an orchard in California, the body of a beloved father is discovered.
It was definitely unsettling.
Why would someone ditch the car and leave the handgun right there in plain sight?
The investigation leads to a hard-working family harboring a dark secret.
He asked for kind of racy-type photos, sexual-type photos, and she sent them.
A cunning mastermind is willing to go to any length to throw detectives off the trail.
They went to this place in Las Vegas, Crime Scene CSI, the experience. They talk about how to defeat DNA, namely using bleach.
The video surveillance showed a person fairly well disguised, wearing a hat, wearing glasses, bulky clothing.
Eventually, they tell her, "We know it's you."
But when the cards are on the table, will justice be served?
I was just completely floored. I just remember I felt so guilty.
You're wrong.
You're caught. You'll probably be on a TV show someday.
It's just before 9 a.m. on Sunday, August 25th, 2013 in Kern County, California. On an almond orchard outside Bakersfield, a worker makes his morning rounds through rows of almond trees.
You wouldn't really have any reason to be out there unless you had work in the fields.
It isn't long before the worker stops in his tracks.
He saw a body laying there in the orchard. He was rather shocked, and he approached the body. He looks more carefully. The individual is not moving and appears to be deceased. So he makes a phone call to his boss, who then makes a call to law enforcement.
When I arrived on scene, I walked up and I met with many of the detectives. We moved him over and I located 2 gunshot wounds to the right side of his chest. It was definitely unsettling. He also had what appeared to be a gunshot wound to his hand at a very close range.
It would appear that at the moment he was being shot, he instinctively raised his hand to try to protect himself.
Officers talked to everyone involved in terms of finding the body. And what they found was that around 7:30 in the morning, there was workmen that was out there in the fields, and at that time did not see anything out of the ordinary. But on a second pass through, between 9 and 9:10, saw a body. So that gave them a timeline to work with.
Searching him, I located his wallet. That's when we were able to identify him as Todd Chance, and it provided us an address.
Todd's body was found around 15 to 20 miles from his house.
What happens in Kern County too often is there are people that are killed, they take the body and they dump it out in orchards.
We have a man who is obviously deceased as a result of being shot to death. It's clearly not a robbery. The individual had a wallet in their pocket. It was a planned and considered murder. They need to figure out if there's anyone that would want to hurt him or harm him.
So when the verdict was read and they found her guilty, I was just completely floored. I just remember getting out of there as fast as I could and just going to the bathroom in the courthouse and just crying and crying. And then it was about getting my sisters and I out of there without the media seeing us. So I kind of pulled myself together and told them, like, let's go out this back door. So we go downstairs and we go out like an emergency exit that's typically not an exit, and we just go to our cars, and we went to my dad's house that night and just kind of sat there and cried all night. It just didn't feel real because my mom was supposed to be home that day. So it was all a blur. It wasn't real. It's still a hard pill to swallow because I refuse to take that as an answer. I mean, the weight I carried around then, I still carry around now because I feel that if I hadn't said what I said during the interrogation, my mom would be home. It's a very hard feeling. Because I've always tried to shelter my mom and my sisters from anything bad. But I would rather be the one with the heavy conscience than anybody else. But it was rough walking around for years, like knowing what I knew about that interrogation, and then I started rethinking, like, did I remember it correctly? Maybe I didn't say that the last person was her, and maybe I did say it was all her in the videos. I started like manipulating myself, and like it started eating me alive. So this has caused a huge rift in our family. I mean, I think I went 3 years without speaking to anybody, including my sisters for a couple of years. And then now it's basically just my sisters and I. We're a family with my kids. It's just kind of like us against the world, it feels like. I mean, we have each other, and I'm so grateful for that. And I'm so lucky to have them because they are amazing girls. And they didn't deserve any of this. And I tried so hard to shelter them from anything, but they're older now. And so it's like I'm trying to learn my place between trying to almost parent them and be their sister. And it's just a weird place to be. I want to be the cool big sister, but at the same time, I'm the worried mom figure in their life. So my contact with my mother now is about once a week through phone calls. It's only once a week right now because of where she's at, and right now the times with COVID, she's not let out of her room very much, and they're not really having visitations. So it's one phone call a week, about 5 minutes each week, and the random letter here and there. And it's a very fast, like, how are you, what's going on, bring me up to date on your life this week. And it's very fast, da-da-da-da. And then, okay, I love you, I'll talk to you next week, bye. And that's how we end it. So it's one time a week. My mom is a private person. She's just looking out for my sisters and I. I see it. As a mom myself, I don't want my kids to ever have to go through any of this. So she's still being a mom, even though she's not here physically with us. She's still protecting us. She's still doing everything she can for us. She needs to be there for not only me and my sisters, but my children and my sister's future children. She needs to be home, and that we are just going to be there for her forever. We're never turning our backs on her. We're never going to stop fighting for her. I want her to know that there's still people out here fighting for her and fighting for the truth.
When the sheriff's department arrested Janae the first time, they absolutely had a strong amount of evidence to indicate that Janae was the person who had in fact killed her husband Todd. However, it was our feeling at the DA's office that the evidence that they had, as strong as it was, still was not quite enough to convince us beyond a reasonable doubt. And we want that. I mean, we hold our cases to a very high standard, especially when you're talking about murder. We do not want to file murder charges on somebody unless we are absolutely certain that this person actually committed that crime. Now, one of the things which we were particularly concerned about was the fact that Janae had indicated that she was on her computer on the morning when Todd was killed. We took the computers and cell phones from the Sheriff's Department and drove them over to the FBI to have their people look at those items and see what they could tell us. That examination was extremely thorough, very involved, and took a substantial amount of time. In fact, it took over a year. However, they were ultimately able to confirm, absolutely and without any question of a doubt whatsoever, that Janae was not on her computer that morning, like she said. This case sticks with me for a variety of reasons. It sticks with me because of the carefulness with which the plan was created, the plan to get away with Todd's murder, the plan to set up somebody for taking the fall for committing that murder. It sticks with me for removing two people from the community, both Janae and Todd, who both had a lot to contribute. Janae, by all appearances, was a very good principal, and she's no longer around to do that job. She was a person who was living a lifestyle that most people would be extremely happy to have, and she threw all that away in a fit of jealous rage. She carefully plotted out Todd's murder, and she executed that plan, but thankfully that plan obviously did not work. I think it's had a significant impact on the community, and I think it's had an even more profound impact on the people closest to Todd. Todd was somebody who was very much beloved by quite a few people. And Janae took that person away. She took Todd away from her daughters. And now those girls are going to have to grow up without Todd being there. And also they're going to have to grow up without Janae being there because she's going to be in prison. So by one act, she took away both parents from those three girls. She took away the son from Todd's parents. She took away Travis and Diana's son and took him away. Everybody in the community, his friends, his extended family, everybody who knew and loved Todd. He was a very popular person. And all those people don't get to see him anymore and never will, ever.
I feel like the prosecution went for my mom so early and so fast that once they pointed their fingers, it was hard to unpoint them. They didn't look at anybody else, and they had so many people saying that that was not her. These people who are prestigious people in this town, like teachers and superintendents, and Todd's own family even said it wasn't her. But they still ran with it. I just don't see how she could have been convicted from this at all. Still boggles my mind.
As the evidence unfolded and more video footage came in and more details came in how elaborate the plan was, it was apparent that this was almost methodical. She knew she had an intent. This wasn't just I am upset and in the moment I have lost my temper and things went terribly awry. This was something that was premeditated. This was something that was thought out. Every detail was planned, from a change of clothes and how we're getting home from here. It was shocking to see how much effort went into it.
Well, her sentence was 50 years to life. It was 25 years to life for first-degree murder, and it was 25 years to life consecutive for using a gun causing that murder. The jury found it to be not true that she committed the murder for the purpose of financial gain, and had the jury found that to be true, then it would be life without the possibility of parole. But 50 years to life is certainly a lengthy period of time, so she would be eligible for parole after 50 years. So we were more than satisfied with that verdict and that sentence.
I don't trust this system anymore. I don't believe jury by trial anymore. I used to be one of those people that when they got their jury summons, I'd be like, oh, this is going to be great. I love jury duty because I felt like I was doing my civic duty and that I could be impartial and I could, make decisions impartially. But now I don't want anything to do with the system of jury duty. I feel like she was railroaded. I feel like, they're not looking to see who the real murderer was, and that the system failed her. The system failed all of us.
The way the news media talked about it, it sounded like that was the sentence that was going to happen. It didn't sound like that was going to be that wasn't a shock to me based on what I was hearing in the news media. Obviously, I felt bad for her daughters. Just terrible for those kids, They lost their dad and their mom, and that's terrible.
This is one that sticks with me. And the reason it sticks with me is because Todd was such an innocent victim. He didn't do anything to deserve this. He lived a good life. He was a good man. He was a good son. He was a good father, a good husband, by all accounts. And he didn't deserve this. And unfortunately, it really shouldn't have happened. Todd should not have had to go out like this.
So I want the truth to come out. I want another trial. I want to show exactly why the first jury got it wrong, and as the foreperson eventually came forward and said how she got it wrong. And that's my hope, and trying to keep this case at least some type of light so that it's never forgotten. I don't want her to be forgotten, and I definitely don't want the Chance girls to be forgotten.